everyone. My name is Emily Ancinec, the voice of Julia Stonewash and many others here on Jollyville Radio. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of interviewing my good friend and neighbor, Jourdie Godley, for today's Community Beat. Jourdie wears many hats. He is a fashion consultant, a model, a digital content creator, writer, and the creative director behind the fashion website East and West. Welcome to Community Beat, Jourdie.
Hi, Emily. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited you're here. So tell the listeners about yourself. Who are you, other than my fabulous neighbor and friend?
Well, I think that's my main title. No. My name is Jourdie. So I am, as Emily mentioned, I'm a fashion consultant, model, creative director of the fashion website East and West. I started this in 2016. And I guess my main goals are to bridge Asia and the West through fashion while promoting the inclusion of people with disabilities in the industry. So I'm fabulous. And
love it. It's great. Of course. It's a given.
You forgot to add that part. Yeah, I'm fabulous. And I love what I do. And I love people. So I love what I do. And I love making a difference in the world, or trying to make a difference in the world through my passions.
That's awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Like, how did you get into fashion and fashion consulting?
Sure. So initially, as we all do when we graduate college, we're all kind of wondering what we want to do with our lives and where we're going to go. And I was in Australia, and I moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. And I took up an internship at the Australian embassy there, doing development and also public diplomacy. And after I got a job in the embassy as a public diplomacy officer, I went to Fashion Week one day with my mom's friend, and it kind of started from there. I took pictures on the runway. The designers liked the pictures that I took, and I got to know a lot of them. And then our embassy wanted to do fashion diplomacy, and as I'd been the only one who'd gone to Fashion Week and knew designers, I kind of started to work with my boss on that, and it all just kind of went from there. I went from wanting to be a diplomat to then entering fashion, which is something I always wanted to do, but never thought someone like myself with a disability could be in the industry. And I wanted to become that person. So
that's awesome. Do you mind giving a little bit of context when I feel like you're kind of talking about it a little bit. Do you want to, if you're comfortable diving into it, like talking about your disability and maybe why you feel like you can't necessarily, or you felt like you couldn't get into the fashion industry?
Sure, of course. Thank you for asking. So I was born with a disability known as cerebral palsy. So I'm a wheelchair user. I'm not wheelchair bound. I use my wheelchair for long distances and going around most places except my apartment. So I am a wheelchair user. I have weak fine motor skills in my hands as well, but it's strong enough to do daily tasks and important things like texting and scrolling. No, but growing up, I always loved fashion. It was something I always loved, and I really wanted to model, and I really wanted to do a lot of those things, but I never saw anyone like myself with a disability in the industry as a model or as anyone. I grew up in Asia, so especially in Asia where disability is not as widely discussed as it is here in America, I hardly saw that inclusion. And so when I started my career in fashion, I really thought, well, there's no table for me, so I'm going to have to build one for myself. And that's what I did.
Awesome. That's great. So kind of talking about your East and West blog, can you give kind of just an overview of what it is, but also what can we in the West learn from the East? So 2 parts. Tell us about your blog real quickly, and then what can we learn from the East? Because it's not a list. Yeah.
Just in general?
Yeah, or just from fashion or anything like that.
Oh, great. Okay. So basically, East and West, I created, I think, in the fall of 2015 or 2016. It's been so long, I don't remember. Basically, on the site, I model clothes in the personal style section, and then I discuss various topics in fashion in the insight section. So I'll cover runway shows of all the emerging designers in Asia, or different fashion weeks around the world. I will talk about different events happening in the industry, and I will model clothes from emerging designers I worked with. I think one of the biggest reasons I started East and West actually was because after going to Fashion Week, I saw there were so many amazing emerging designers in Asia that didn't have a platform to be promoted overseas. And so that was one of the reasons I created East and West. That is the bridging the Asia and the West through fashion. So promoting these brands and letting everyone know they exist and look how fashion forward they are and look how cool they are.
Nice.
And so East and West, it's fun. I mean, it's rather, I don't want to say simple, but it's very straightforward. You get runway, you get personal style from me, you get different updates, news updates from things happening in the industry. So it's good. I really enjoy creating there.
Cool. Awesome. And listeners, Jourdie is very humble, and I'm going to bring this up because I think this is a big deal. But you are listening to someone who has been the subject of a CNN film school documentary, which is amazing. And it's a great 10-minute video. We'll include it in the link. Michael, we're just going to put it in there just because it's too good. So it's an opportunity to learn about Jourdie, to see Jourdie. And I think I was just watching it again before this recording. And what I love, there's a statement in there that you make that I love it. It's so great. It says, "My wheelchair is beautiful and I look beautiful in my wheelchair." And it's kind of talking about how you didn't want to be photographed in it, but then you realized that was an asset and a strength. So I wanted to tell you that I absolutely love this, but also do you want to talk about that journey a little bit?
Sure.
And how you got there and how people can embrace things that they may see as an insecurity and kind of leaning into it?
Thank you for asking that question, and I really appreciate it because I never get to talk about this enough when I do media, so I really appreciate this. Look, growing up, I was never ashamed of being disabled. I can't change it. It's just, It is what it is. I'm in a wheelchair and, I can't. But what I used to do, if I look back at my Facebook, which I'll show you sometime, is that all my photos are kind of cropped from the waist up, right? I would either be on my knees standing or I'd either crop myself that way, not because I was ashamed of being disabled, but because I didn't think my wheelchair was attractive or beautiful, right? I didn't think I looked good in my wheelchair. It kind of made me just look different or more different than everyone else. And, as an awkward teenager and as a, young adult, you want to kind of fit in and you want to be like everyone else. Mm-hmm. But I always know that I'm not, right? And I've lived in, 6 countries across the Asian region. And in some of those countries, I would be stared at a lot being in a wheelchair, not because I was, people thought I looked beautiful because of whatever, but because a lot of people had seen someone out so much in a wheelchair. And people would stare and they would point. And some people would shield their kids away from you or, laugh. And so when you're a teenager, you kind of feel like really insecure. And some days I didn't really want to go outside because I didn't want to experience that. And so I never really had a role model to kind of show me that my wheelchair was beautiful or feel confident in my wheelchair. And so on social media, in the start of Facebook and all that, you can kind of not be who you want to be, but you can curate your image. And I wasn't ever trying to deny I had a disability, but I just kind of wanted to make my photos look more, what I felt more aesthetically pleasing. When I started East and West, I was nervous. I was nervous about online trolls or people being mean to me or saying mean things. But at the same time, at that point, at 24 or 25 years old, I kind of understood that if I don't take this step and I don't put myself out there, that there are a lot of other young people, especially in my region, who feel the way that I felt and are not going to change the way they think of themselves because I haven't seen anyone. So I thought I should be that person, the person that I never got to see growing up, right? And so I worked with this amazing photographer by the name of Panji in Indonesia. And, he is so well known and he was just such a big supporter of me. And as I started to, ask brands to model for them or use their clothes to create content, I started to really take pictures out of my wheelchair, but then in my wheelchair, because the whole point of me doing this was so that I could change the perceptions of disability, right? Break those negative perceptions. And so at first it was pretty uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know if this looks good. I didn't feel like it looked good. But as I kept going, I realized, wow, I look hot. I mean, I've always known I'm hot. Kidding.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
I looked more, I was like, I'm like just as hot as I am in my chair as I am out of my chair.
Exactly.
I was like, So it's like I'm just hot all the time, you know? So I was like, I gained that confidence. And, you know, you can't see any kind of like how can I say shyness when when I have photos taken in my chair. I was like rocking it. I got to learn how to do different poses. And again, because there was no one as an example, I had to like learn how to pose in my wheelchair. I had to learn what angles to sit or like how to push myself up or when to hold on to my wheel. And, you know, but I love being in front of the camera. Your audience is going to think I'm a narcissist, but I love being in front of the camera.
He's not. He's not a narcissist. Like, I can confirm that. I know him and I'm friends with him. So.
Thank you. No, but like yeah, I had to, you know, learn how to do all that, and I was like, yeah, it was a great learning experience. So I think fashion, such an exclusive industry, you know, that's so based on looks, actually taught me or reaffirmed the beauty in my disability to myself. So it was a journey, and you know, I tend to take photos in and out of my wheelchair because I still want to show people that I'm versatile as a model, and that I'm not how can I say confined to my wheelchair. I'm not wheelchair bound, which is a mistake a lot of people make when they reference someone in a wheelchair that they're wheelchair bound, because then everyone is bound to their chair. I'm not, you know, strapped down and, you know, handcuffed to my chair. So I wanted to show people that, you know, I can be both in and out of my wheelchair.
No, I think that's awesome because I think it's a good example of just you are who you are and you're bringing it to the table, and just that acceptance that regardless of if you're in fashion or wherever, like you just need to be able to appreciate who you are and what you bring to the table. So that's huge, and that you could do it in a field like fashion.
Exactly. And then to answer your other question on, you know, what can people do to feel more confident in themselves, I think it's just believing in yourself and realizing that everyone is beautiful in their own way. You know, for me, having something that is so obvious or like so you can't avoid seeing it, you know, one can only help not feeling a little bit insecure, right? Mm-hmm. But for me now, I'm so confident in my chair, and I just think it's amazing. But I know a lot of young people, some young people still struggle with not having that confidence. And, you know, I've seen that through my work in fashion and kind of the reactions I've got from the disability and the disability community and the able-bodied community as well.
Cool. Awesome. So what would you like to see more of when it comes to accessibility in fashion?
I would like to see models on the runway, not just for one season or for one show or one designer. It'd be like a one-off thing where they pat themselves on the back and say, look, we're inclusive. I want it to be normal. I want it to be so normal that you don't even think about it anymore. Because I think when you see something so much, you don't even think about it, that's when it's truly become normalized. And I was told that by a designer that I worked really closely with. You know, I would go to events and people wouldn't talk to me because they would be so uncomfortable with my disability and seeing me in a wheelchair. And only when I got out of my wheelchair and sat in a regular chair, they'd talk to me. So my friend said, or the designer said, you have to keep attending things. You have to make people get used to it. And so I think the more we have a presence on everything, whether it's runways, campaigns, you know, editorials, magazine covers, it'll just become something normal. It'll become normalized to the general public that people with wheelchairs we exist, and we're just as capable and just as normal as you. You know, so I want to see more of us everywhere. You know,
nice.
That's what I want. I want us to take over the world. You know, and make the whole world flat so that we can. Sorry. Flat earthers, no, but I mean, like, take them, you know, have no stairs. Yeah.
Perfect. Make it more wheelchair accessible.
Yeah. I'm not a flat earther. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, make it so it's easy to get around.
Exactly.
That's perfect. Awesome. So I guess what are some other, we kind of just talked about this, but like, I guess in general, what are some ways that our listeners can be more inclusive? Or what recommendations do you have for our listeners in general?
I mean, if you want to be more inclusive of people with disabilities, I think it starts from having a conversation like this, right? And realizing that people with disabilities are just like you, you know, although our disabilities may present certain challenges or, you know, obstacles, it's nothing that can't be overcome. And, you know, I think it's when people become so worried about someone's disability that's when it becomes, you know, exclusionary.
Yeah.
You know, for example, if you have a friend with a disability and you are not sure how ADA accessible your apartment is and you want to have a party, don't not invite them because you're not sure they'll be able to get in or get up. Invite them and allow them to make that decision. You know, I think a lot of the time people, you know, looking at good intention, want to ensure that things are accessible for us. And then if they don't think they are, then they just kind of, they don't want to approach that, you know, but by not giving us the agency to make those decisions for ourselves is kind of being more exclusionary, right? So always include your friends with disabilities. If you don't have a friend with a disability, ask yourself maybe why, or, you know, I mean, don't go seeking us out. And it's not like we're like a novelty, but like, you know, you do happen to run into someone with a disability, get to see them for them and not their disability. I think that's one of the biggest things that I discovered when I graduated university is that I wasn't judged based on my abilities. It was my disability that I was being judged for, and I was being held back not because of it, but because of other people's perceptions of it. You know, so just don't have any perceptions and talk to someone like you would talk to anyone else, and get to know them, and you know, be their friend, and you know, and in time you'll learn their limitations. You know, I'm sure you, Emily, as we've been friends this last year, I hope that, you know, I know that you've learned things from me about accessibility and about having a friend with a disability. You know, I think it's really important for everyone to kind of expose themselves to that and just treat someone like with a disability as if everyone else, because we're normal.
Yeah. So we actually, just for our listeners, we actually had this conversation the last time we talked. I was pretty point blank of like, hey, like some parts of DC are super accessible and a lot of the parts where we live are not. And so I was like, hey, how does this work? You know, like if I find a cool spot, like how do we want to approach it and things like that. Like we actually had that conversation, but it's important because I was like, oh, I'd love to do this with Jourdie, and then but being like, can we do it? And being more cognizant of like not self-selecting out of it, but making sure that like, hey, is this something that you're up to? You know, is this something that you can, you know,
exactly,
does this work for you?
That's the way it should be, because you weren't making a decision for me that I would be able to get up somewhere, so therefore we shouldn't try it. We shouldn't, you know, go, but we shouldn't try it. You know, it was a discussion like, hey, I found this place. How, you know, do you think this would be accessible for you? And we figure it out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's awesome. So getting back into fashion, is there, since you kind of work with emerging designers, is there a designer that you want us to know about or that you've recently worked with that you can talk about?
Yes, most definitely. You know, a designer I want everyone to know about in the world is an amazing designer from India by the name of Rahul Mishra. He is one of the most amazing people I know. He is an incredibly creative human being who is so talented, and his garments are gorgeous. And his whole brand is about sustainability, and his whole brand story is amazing. And, you know, I won't tell it because I won't do it justice. But he's just an amazing person, and I love him, and I think his clothes are great. If I ever went to the Met Gala, he'd be the first person I asked to dress me.
Oh, cool.
Or any designer, just because he's the first South Asian designer to ever have shown at Paris Couture Fashion Week, if that says something. So,
cool.
Everyone check him out. And there's actually an article about him on my website, so you can read that, behind the brand Rahul Mishra, if you want.
Nice. Oh, that's great. That's really cool. So this is the last little section is just a hodgepodge of a bunch of different questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you've hinted that you've lived a lot of different places, which listeners, he has. He has lived a ton of different awesome places. If you could move somewhere entirely new, where would it be?
Oh, like somewhere I've never even been before.
Yeah, never. Somewhere, well, maybe you've visited or wherever, but somewhere you've never lived before. Like like I know that I've told you that like if in a heartbeat I would move to London. Like I love London.
Right.
Maybe something like that.
I think my heart is so in Asia. I'd probably want to move back somewhere in Asia that I've not lived before.
Okay.
I guess that would be Singapore, but I mean, otherwise, somewhere else I'd love to live. I'd love to live in Paris. I'd love to live in London. I'd love to live in Hawaii. I loved Honolulu. I went there recently with my mom in May, this past May, and I loved it. And I'm like, I could live here. You know, I love that. So maybe Honolulu for a little while. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. So our listeners are from all over. the US, and we have some international listeners as well. How would you recommend that they engage in their communities around fashion, especially inclusive fashion?
I think start by not focusing on brands that you know because they're big names, by looking at what your local emerging designers are creating and supporting them. Look at your local fashion week and see which designers are showing there, and kind of that's how you can begin to educate yourself on your local industry and really support those designers. If you don't, I think that emerging designers are, they're the future of fashion. And so if you can be a part of their journey and, a part of their beginnings by supporting them and wearing them, that'll be great. I mean, true luxury is not always a brand name. Let's not forget that. True luxury is quality. I have a lot of clothes, as Emily's probably seen my horribly organized closet that looks like a tornado went off in there. And I have a lot of clothes in that closet, and some very high-end clothes and clothes from emerging brands. But one of the most luxurious pieces I own is a piece made for me by a designer in Indonesia, and I'm the only one with that in the world. And so to me, that is
that's cool.
To me, that is luxury. And so these pieces are usually always so unique, and a lot of emerging brands, especially from Asia, are very fashion forward. And, America has great emerging brands too. And so does the UK, and so does Europe. You look at Scandinavian countries, they have amazing designers, and, so does Southeast Asia, and so does, Latin America. There's amazing designers everywhere. And so just, looking into designers in your area would be great, whether it's your country or your city. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So what fashion advice would you give our listeners?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I have a good answer for that. What makes you comfortable? You don't make clothes. The clothes don't make you look good. You make the clothes look good. And so if you feel comfortable and confident in what you're wearing, to me, that is true style. There's a difference between style and trend. We always try to follow trends. I don't follow trends. I set them. I don't follow them. But
this a hair flip for a moment for all for everybody at home.
I don't follow trends. No, I don't follow trends. But I wear what I like, and I think that when you feel comfortable and confident in what you wear, that is what having good style is. Not wearing the latest sneakers by a brand, or a latest, crop top or dress from a brand, or a sweater from a brand that has a big name. It's wearing what you like to wear and what makes you comfortable, and then you'll look amazing. And to me, that is true. To me, that is having good style, feeling comfortable and confident in what you wear.
Nice. That's awesome. So how can people learn more about you, can get connected? How can we stay in touch?
You can Google me. No.
Perfect.
I'm everywhere. No, I'm kidding. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is at east.and.west. You can go to my website, eastandweststyle.com. And yeah, I mean, you can connect with me there. And I always reply to DMs, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Jourdie, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad we got to do this, because this is what our conversations are a lot of. And so this is just really cool that we get to kind of share it with other people. So thank you so much for being here. And this has been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I feel very honored to be a guest on your podcast, on your radio show. So thank you. Yeah,
absolutely. And so thank you to Jourdie, and I hope that all of our listeners have a great rest of your day. Signing off from Jollyville Radio, this is Emily Ancinec with KJVR.
The cast of Jollyville Radio Season 5 includes Emily Ancinec, John Cook, Michael Crosa, Robin Crosa, Michelle Darcy, Jamie Davis, Richard Dayries, Johanna Fredrickson, Brian Green, Elissa Marks, Liz Rader-Hagler, Matt Waite, and Kay Wise Denty.
Our Season 5 Writers Room: Emily Ancinec, Michael Crosa, Jillian Dull, Brian Green, Liz Rader-Hagler. And a thank you to our editors who make this podcast jolly: Michael Crosa, Jamie Davis, and Richard and Monsi Dayries.
Season 5 is directed by Michael Crosa with help from assistant directors Jamie Davis and Emily Ancinec. Music by Michaels, Crosa, and Stanley. Additional editing and graphic design support from Worker Genix. This podcast was produced by Chattanooga Podcast Studios. Find out more at ChattanoogaPodcastStudios.com. Thanks again for listening. For KJVR in Jollyville, I'm Jimmy Piecrust. We'll see you next time on Jollyville Radio.